Everyone, this is Joel and I'm back with another video on ASA. We'll continue with the same topology and we'll be talking about ASA routing to be specific, right? So how do we do this? The topology is pretty simple. Three routers, R1 represents the inside, R2 represents the outside, and R3 is basically my DMZ, right? All my routers are pretty fresh, so let me start configuring them and we will take it from there, right? So let's start with the basic IP configuration. So let me start with probably my R1, right? Let me put sync, let me go to R1. Yeah, so let's start with the basic IP address configurations. Okay, let me just do the login configuration. This is not compulsory, I just like doing this piece. Now the IP addresses, right, which is very important. So if you look my router R1, I need to have my Ethernet 0/0, which is 10.11.11.1, and my loopback address as well. So let's put that. So you can see here Ethernet address and my loopback address, and it's a very basic IP configuration, right? So that's my R1, right? Let me do the same thing on my R2 as well, right? But if you look at R2, I need to have an Ethernet address. I need to have two loopbacks as well, right? Yeah, so that's going to be my R2. Let's do that. There you go, right? So we have the logging sync configuration, but after that you have the Ethernet. You need to have loopback 199 and loopback 200, right? So we're going to use this topology for quite some time, maybe in the next video as well, so I will not reconfigure again, so you can have a look at this, right? So these are the addresses, 199.1.1.2 and 200.1.1.2. so these are the two addresses over here, two back addresses, right? That's good. And the last one is basically my R3. Let's do that as well. So on my R3, let's go down and let's put the addresses. There you go. So again, we have the logging sync, right? Ethernet address 0/0 192.168.1.3, right? Over here, and then I have my loopback address 10.3.3.3, which is this one, right? No shut, and there you go. That's done. So I have done the IP configuration on all my three routers, right? Now we will start with the routing configuration. All right. So for routing, how do we do this? So we'll start with probably let's do one thing. So we're going to look at three protocols, right? I'm going to define OSPF. Let me maybe put it down over here. So it's going to be OSPF, and the OSPF is going to be between in this area, that's R2 and the ASA, and I need to have my EIGRP. Now that will be here, right? EIGRP, now that's going to be over here. That's basically for my R1 and ASA, and the last one is my RIP. I also want to show you guys RIP, so that's basically goes down here, right? So the RIP is going to be between R3 and the ASA, right? So let's start with the first one. Let's look at EIGRP. I think that should be pretty simple, right? Now for EIGRP, we will start with the basic EIGRP configuration, which we have done quite some time. So let's go down to R1, right? So what's going to be the configuration? So because we are setting up EIGRP between R1 and ASA, we need to do configurations on both the sides, right? It's pretty much simple. Now let's start with the basic configuration. So it's going to be router EIGRP 100, then obviously no auto summary. Then the networks, the two networks I need to advertise. One is basically my 10.11 network, and the other one is my 10.1.1 network, right? Observe that during these on the router we normally use an inverse mask just like this, but it is not the case on my ASA. I will show you that, right? So I'm going to drop this command, right? So after that, let me do the EIGRP configuration, basically the same configuration what I did just now, but on the other side. That's my ASA. Let's do that. Yeah, let's go down to ASA, right? Yeah, okay. So conf t, right? So on this, what's going to be the config? Again, router EIGRP 100, no auto summary, and the only network I intend to advertise is 10.11 network, because that's the only one on this side, so I'm going to drop that. right? That's good. Now, so just doing this is not sufficient. We need to set up some authentication for the protocols. So for authentication purpose, we need to um, do again certain configurations on both my routers and my ASA. So let's do that. Let's do it for the router first, right? So for the router, you need to define something called as a keychain, right? Probably you guys would have used this before, but this is how you do it. So you have keychain, define a name for the keychain, define ID, key number, and the password, right? The key string, which is going to be used for authentication. So I'm going to define Cisco 123. It has to be the same on both the sides, right? So there you go. That's done. Now we need to obviously enable it on a particular interface. Now the interface here on R1 is basically Ethernet 0/0, where I have to enable it. So let's do that. Right, so let's do that. Let's go to the interface 0/0. I'm going to put IP authentication mode EIGRP and EIGRP 100 because that's the autonomous number of the EIGRP, and MD5 is the hash I'm going to use, right, for my authentication. And the next command basically will attach my keychain, which I described earlier. It's going to be it's going to attach that keychain ABC to my router EIGRP 100, right? So that's this. Okay, so that's the configuration which had to go on the router side. So now let's see the authentication configuration which has to go on my ASA, right? So that's going to be again here you go. So you have the interface and authentication mode. The configuration is kind of same as what we did on the this thing as well, right, on the router side. So I have to put in my authentication mode EIGRP 100 and the MD5, which is the hash. We need not define a separate some keychain over here. You can directly plug in the password over here in this way. So you can define authentication key and then specify which protocol and what is autonomous number, and then put in the password key, right, and the key ID is basically 1, right, which we define on the other side. So you drop this, that's it. So now EIGRP should be enabled, right? We can check that. Let's check that on my this thing, do show route, right? Sorry, IP route, right? So you have here, you have on R1 you have the 10.1 network and the 10.11 network as well, right? Let's see if the 10.1 network is seen on my ASA, right? So we can do that. Show route is going to be the command. Okay, it's not at up. So we'll wait for a minute. It might take a couple of minutes. Oh, okay. So I think I know the mistake. I did not configure the IP addresses on my ASA. My bad. I just configured the connectivity on R1 and R2, R3. So let me quickly do that. Let me configure the IP addresses on my ASA. Okay, let me do that. So that's going to be here. Very simple again. So we go down here. So I'm gonna put a host name as ASA1. The gigabit Ethernet 0/0, which is over here towards R2, is going to get 192.1.20.10, and I'm gonna define it as outside, and 0/1, right, the one towards down, it's the inside, and I'm gonna define the address to be 10.11.11.10, and the same thing on the DMZ side is going to be 192.168.1.10, right? I'm gonna put this, right? So now I should see the interfaces. There you go, the IP addresses are up, and let's see if I have some routes. Yes, so I have my routes as well, right? So you can see on my ASA I'm able to see that there is a route to 10.1 as well, right? 10.1 network, which is actually behind my R1 router, right? So that's pretty good. So I have done the EIGRP successfully. Now let's extend the same concept and let's do the next one, which is going to be RIP, right? Let's do it for RIP, right? So we're going to do RIP between, as I said earlier, we're going to do it between R3 and the ASA. So on the R3 side, let's do this. So what's going to be the configuration? So let's pull that up. Yeah, here it is. So we are going to start with router RIP, the version, obviously, because it's RIP version 2. No auto summary, just like how we did in EIGRP. And we need to advertise the two networks, which is 192.168.1.0, and the other network is 10.3, right? I'm going to just advertise 10.0, right? That works as well. So I'm going to do this. Let me also do the authentication part as well. Now that we know that, you need to do two steps. One is the routing configuration and then the authentication as well, right? So let's do that as well. So you see here, I'm going to define the keychain, right, on my R3, just like how I did on my R1. Define the keychain, put in a password, go to the interface Ethernet 0/0, which is over here, put in IP RIP authentication. The mode is going to be, the hashing is MD5, and the next line I'm going to put again RIP authentication, the keychain, which I defined as ABC, right? Works. So that's the only configuration which is needed for RIP on the router R3. Now we need to do this similar kind of configuration on my ASA as well, right? Let me clear this up a bit. Great. So what goes on the ASA is basically this piece. Let me show you guys. Yeah, so I have my router RIP, my version 2, right? No auto summary, obviously, and then the network I need to advertise 192.168.1.0, right? Which is 192.168.1.0. I'm doing this on R3, so this is the network. Sorry, yeah, I'm on ASA, right? I'm doing it on ASA. So this is the only network 192.168.1.0 I'm advertising. And then I go down to the interface gigabit 0/2, right? RIP authentication mode MD5 and RIP authentication key Cisco 123, right? The password and key ID is 1, right? There you go. So that's done. So that was the configurations for the RIP on both my R3 and ASA. So what do we do next? Let's check if it is working. Let's check on R3. Let's do show IP route. Okay, so we have the networks. We have the 192.168 network, right? And we also have the 10.3 network. Great. Let me also see on my ASA if it has worked. Might take few seconds to come up, but yeah. So I'm supposed to have 192.168.1.0 and my 10.3 network. Yeah, I can see my 10.3 network, which is actually behind R3, is seen in the routing table of my ASA, right? So that's pretty good. Let's wrap this up with the last protocol which I need to do, which is OSPF, right? So the OSPF, like I already said, it's going to be acting between R2 and my ASA. So let's go down to R2 and do the OSPF configuration, right? So the basic configuration or the routing configuration is going to be this. Let's go down to R2. There you go. So I have OSPF 1, right? That's going to be like the protocol number, right? The process ID, and the router ID is going to be 2.2.2. The networks which I need to advertise, I'm going to put everything in area zeros, right? So it's going to be because I'm doing this on router 2 over here. I have the 199 network, the 200 network, and then this 192 network as well. So I'm going to advertise all the three. Let me also do the authentication, which is slightly different kind of a configuration here on OSPF. So it looks like this. So I need to go to the interface Ethernet 0/0, which is this one. Put in IP OSPF authentication, obviously, and then instead of MD5, you put it as message digest here. And then you put IP OSPF message digest key. The key which will be used is basically Cisco 123. This and right, these things are pretty, you need to note it down because you do need to do the same configuration on the ASA as well, right? Let's go and do the same configuration on the ASA. So on the ASA, the OSPF configuration would be, yeah, Great. So here I'm going to start with again the OSPF 1 process ID. I'm going to put the router ID is going to be 10.10.10.10, right? The networks, right? The network, the only network which my ASA has to advertise towards R2 is only 192.1.20.0. So only that goes. Now the authentication, like I said, is very important, and we are going to put OSPF authentication message digest. Going to use the same key which I used on the other side, and just for just for the sake of it, I'm going to put also a default gateway towards the outside, right? So if there is any packet, it has to be sent to the network, so it will be sent out. So so I'm going to put that on the ASA as well, right? Just like a default gateway towards the pointing towards the outside. So that's done. So we have done the OSPF as well, right? Let's check if that works. So probably I'll have to do a show route here. When I did a show route, you can see the networks 199 and 200 are not yet visible. So it will take a couple of seconds, maybe a few seconds to come up. Let's wait for that. So meanwhile, let me check here. Right, that is 199 and 200, so that needs to come out on this side as well. Okay, hope I have done it right. Yeah, so I have put in the networks over here. Did I do it right on this side? Yeah, so I have my thing. So I think, yeah, it will take few seconds to come up. I have seen that in the past, so I'm expecting it to come up anytime now. Yeah, there you go. It's up. So it's 199 and 200, right? So these two networks are also now visible on my ASA. Great. So I ran EIGRP down here, OSPF up here, and RIP over here, right? But I think something is missing, right? Basically R2 or let's say R1 is actually currently not able to reach my R3 because the routes, there is like RIP over here running, and there is like EIGRP. So I think you guys would have heard of something called redistribution. The EIGRP routes has to be redistributed into RIP, RIP into EIGRP, and similar is the case with OSPF as well. So let's do a bit of redistribution on my ASA now, right? And after that you'll be able to do a ping and see the connectivity. So let's clear the screen a bit. Okay, so redistribution. So let's redistribute first inside RIP, right? Into RIP. So how do we do that? So now, okay, just to see this happen, let me also do one thing. Let me clear the screen on R3, right? Because where is RIP running? On R3. Great. So let's have show IP route over here, just like a okay, my bad. Let's have do show IP route, right? So this was the route before redistribution. Now let's see what happens after I redistribute, right? So I'm going to do redistribution command here, which is router RIP, right? I'm going to redistribute OSPF 1, right, with a metric of 1, right? So these things are very specific for different protocols. You need, when you're redistributing, you need to make sure about the cost, the bandwidth, and all of that. For more information on that, you can refer the routing protocols itself, but from a security, from a ASA point of view, I think this is pretty much enough, right? So I'm redistributing my OSPF and EIGRP into RIP, right? I'm doing that. There you go. I did that. Now let's see what happens to the routing table of my R3, right? You can see a considerable change. So this is now my new routing table. Earlier it was small, right? Now what we did was the EIGRP routes have been injected into sorry, the EIGRP and the OSPF routes have been injected into my R3, and you can see that as well. You can see the 10.1 network, which is my EIGRP over here, and you have the 199 and the 200 network, which is up here, right? So both of these routes were injected inside RIP. Let's follow the same exercise and also inject the other two protocol, right? So let's inject into EIGRP, right, which seems fun. Let's do that. So there you go. So when I inject, maybe before this, let me open up this so that we can do the same exercise of seeing the pre and post observation, right? So it's going to be do show IP route, right? Let's keep this like this, and now let's do the redistribution, right? cancel, sorry. Yeah, there you go. So it's going to be router EIGRP 100. So I'm redistributing RIP, I'm redistributing OSPF, right? The metric is going to be 111. All these are I'm redistributing with a metric or with a cost of 1, right? And you can see that I'm doing the same thing for OSPF as well. So as soon as I do this, you can go down and see on which one, right? What did I do just now? I redistributed into EIGRP, right? So into EIGRP I need to go and see R1. So let's go see R1. There you go. You can see a considerable change. Earlier these were the routes. Now you see you have more routes because we have got routes from OSPF and I also got it from my RIP, right? Injected here. Right, let's do the last one, right? So probably here, so it's going to be so I'm going to do OSPF now, right? The OSPF is R2. Let's do R2 here. Let's clear this screen, right? So do show IP route. So this is going to be my pre on my R2. I'm going to go down to my firewall and I'm going to inject inside our OSPF. It's going to be this one. There you go. So into OSPF, I'm going to put the router OSPF1, redistribute RIP and redistribute EIGRP, right? So as soon as I redistribute this, I can go down to my R2 and I can see the difference, right? Wait, should I have done that? So OSPF, yeah. Okay, let's give it a minute. I think it will take a minute to come. Yeah, there you go. It's up now. So you can see now on my R2 I have the routes injected into it. I can see my route 10.3, which is actually my RIP route, right? 10.3 over here, and I also have my routes which is 10.1, which is my which was obtained using the EIGRP. So that is it, guys. I wanted to show you how do we do routing with ASA.